Hi, I'm Brian Grant, and you're listening to On Time, the Brian Grant Foundation podcast about living with Parkinson's. If you want to know more about Brian Grant Foundation, go to briangrant.org.
Parkinson's is a progressive disease, which means it gets worse over time. As the symptoms change, the ways you manage Parkinson's may also need to change. And we're not just talking about changing medications and therapies. Your whole approach to living with Parkinson's, including your mindset, lifestyle, and support network, is constantly adapting as you move through the stages of this disease. In this episode, we're talking with Kevin Kwok about his journey through the stages of Parkinson's, and I'm joined by co-host Brian Grant. Hello, Kevin. How are you?
Doing great, Heather. Great to be here with you and Brian.
And hello, Brian. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. It's always a pleasure, Heather. Kevin.
Cool. So, Kevin, we were going to ask you about your life before Parkinson's. Just give us like an overview of where your brain was, where your mind was when you got diagnosed, and about approximately how long ago that was.
No, I was living in a world where there were no boundaries, right? The sky's the limit. I thought I was going to be the CEO of a biotech company. The world was my oyster, right? And I won't say it came to a screeching halt, but it came to a certain absolute reality check and a decade of sobering up to really understand and deal with the situation. I mean, like all of us, it's not an easy piece of news to accept. But what I can tell you is in the early days, it's very different than it is today, 12 years later. I mean, back in the early days, you can kind of fake it, right? A good friend of mine once said, when you have Parkinson's, you don't fake your illness, you fake your wellness. And during those early days, I faked my wellness as good as anyone could. I did tell people at work, I still maintain a very active work life, social life, and everything else. And really just sort of got by through sheer muscle and grit. Today is a very different story. We'll probably come to that, right?
Right. And to quote one of my favorite songs, No More Dating DJs, we were going to be a strong black unit for change, but your mother's basement was too small to house the revolution. It's like we thought we were going to take the world by fire. We were going to make changes. We were going to make big things happen. And the older Parkies were like, let's see how this goes. Pass the popcorn. Because they knew. But I had no idea that was happening because I was so hopeful. And I still am, but in a different way. And Brian, you were diagnosed around the same time as Kevin. So, did you have a similar mindset in the early days?
In the early days, I had this same mindset of invincibility. I was Brian Grant. I stood up to Karl Malone. I stood up to Shaq. I went against Alonzo Mourning and got my teeth knocked back, but I kept bouncing back, and I had 12 surgeries and recovered from every one of them. So I still had that little bit of invincibility that I'm going to live forever feeling. And, when I was diagnosed, like Kevin said, I didn't come to a screeching halt, but the reality of my mortality began to weigh on me.
Yeah. Yeah, when we start to leave the house and it takes us a little while to get our shoes on, there's a humbling aspect to that.
Very much so.
Yeah, and that doesn't happen at first. At first, I'm thinking, we got this. This isn't so hard. I can still run and jump and play. And suddenly, I could jump maybe, but not walk so well. So, so 14 years later, let's scroll ahead a bit, Kevin. How have your symptoms changed and what's your approach like now?
Well, so, Parkinson's hits you at the speed of glaciers, right? So the change is infinitesimally slow, but every day there's just something a little bit less that you can accomplish in your day-to-day activity. So it's not like you wake up over one night or one morning and the lights are different. It's just very gradual. But then after like a period of a decade, you look back and go, wow, this is really different. So what I'm dealing with now is a whole new chapter in my life. where I'm trying to come to grips with what is it now that this disease now that I have, where I can no longer overcome it with just muscle and sheer grit. We used to say in martial arts, when you're young, you fight bone on bone. But now it's a whole different idea of fighting using Aikido, Judo, and avoidance and redirection. And I'm still not there yet on really fully understanding how to get there. But I know that the next presentation I write is that I just thought of this at 3 in the morning this morning. It's gonna be the Tao of Parkinson or the Road of Parkinson.
You've always been my Jedi Master. You have informed me many times, Kevin, when I was on the ledge. And Brian, you too. What do you think of the Tao of Parkinson's? Good one? Like the Tao of Pu, who has this philosophy that he's going to be okay.
It's really translated from Chinese. It is the road or the path to enlightenment. And I cannot say that I'm enlightened now because I'm like all of you. I'm struggling at the moment. We have this walk coming up, this event, and I have to tell you, I am scared. Can I swear online?
That makes two of us, Kev. Sorry, buddy.
See, we're at the same stage, the three of us, right? We're at a place where who would have thought that walking was going to be a struggle? And I'm here now thinking, my two legs, I just hope to complete them, right? I mean, I'm walking and I'm practicing and I'm thinking, wow, 5 years ago, oh, I would run this. I wouldn't even walk it. Now I am not even sure I can finish it, right? And so these are the kind of reality checks that I'm going through at the moment as I'm coming to grips with it. I can't say it's easy, but I will also say that we have no choice but to remain positive and upbeat and figure out what is our path. So anyway, that's kind of where I'm at right now, 2022, August.
Excellent. At least in this hour, right? We know that every hour can be different with our med uptake and our med plummeting. When you have your meds in and you feel like you can take on the world in the morning, I don't know about you two, but I often sign up for things in the morning. Brian and Kevin, do you ever agree to things in the morning? Then by the afternoon, you're like, oh, hell no.
Oh, I overcommit every single day. But it's a world I'd rather be in, overcommitting. So now my joy comes from attempts and trying. So this is where I'm just overjoyed to be part of the team here, right? I mean, we cheer each other on. We're sending each other texts. We're constantly saying and rooting each other on. To me, that is where my head is at. It's not to win; it's to participate. And damn it, I'm going to participate, right? I may fail in the process, but I'm going to show up at the game.
Absolutely perfect. Brian knows a little bit about showing up for the game. Brian, your symptoms have changed quite a bit too the last 14 years. You want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, they've definitely changed up on me and they've ramped up the game. I'm still playing in, 2015, 2016 season when we're already in 2022, and it's definitely ahead of me. I look at it as I'm finally getting over Brian, meaning when people tell me you should really start taking your meds on time and space them out and take them at a certain time. For so long, I haven't done that, and I was doing just fine. Now I finally gotten to the point where, with switching up meds, going on the Retari, if I don't have it on a schedule, I won't get that relief. And I'm still trying to tweak things here and there. But I would definitely say it's me getting over me. Early on when I had it, I definitely would, kind of distance myself from having to take in too much Parkinson's,
Right.
if that makes sense. Like people who had it, who were farther advanced, it would put me in a mood where I was like, damn, I'm not there yet. I don't want to go there yet. But then I picked myself up and realized that those are the people that I need in my life to help me learn and help me be able to deal with it when I get there. And now I feel like I'm trying to getting there. And it's rough sometimes, but having things to do like what we're doing on the radio, talking to each other, sharing our ups and downs, and knowing that it's helping other people, that's where my joy lies.
Yeah.
Ryan, you're awesome. I tip my hat to people like you and Davis Finney who boost us all up by example, right? You
Right.
guys are great.
Yeah. Suiting up and showing up for us every day. Every day you guys show up. Every day I talk to Katrina or Kevin or Brian or somebody, and you lift me more than you know just by showing up.
Can I share with you a story from this weekend?
Yes, please.
I got a call from a newly diagnosed Parkinson's guy who said, I've been told I need to talk to you. And so I said, well, I can't meet you in public because I can't speak in loud restaurants right anymore. So I said, why don't you just come over for coffee? So we talked for 3 hours. And it was an emotional moment. This very stoic, he's a very successful business guy, broke down in tears on my balcony. But what was really interesting for me was, we hugged and we got over this the sort of the sorrow going on to other things. And he wrote me a very nice thank you note. His thank you note was, I came over because I wanted to learn about the science of Parkinson's, and I was told that you could teach me that. But he said, I left with a philosophy on life, on how to live. And that just touched my heart because that's what we're trying to do here is help people live well with what they've got and adjust. And for me, those kind of one-on-one meetings mean everything to me.
I'm so touched by the story, the philosopher, so the Jedi, and you never call yourself a Jedi or a master, but certainly having had experience that you can share is worth so much to all of us. I was going to ask you about marketability and supply and demand with research, and here we are learning about life together. You do come from the pharmaceutical arena, and if the news were any indication, you'd swear there was a cure just around the corner. What do you make of that, Kevin? We're always getting the news that, there's a cure.
Well, that's media, that's naivete, that's people playing on the hopes and hypes of that all of us wish we could find the silver bullet. But the truth is, having been in the industry for more than 25 years, I realize how hard it is to develop products. I mean, and so not to rain on the parade of the gray research that's happening, but I'll just quote. I mean, just last week, the New England Journal of Medicine talked about 2 antibody drugs that were targeting alpha-synuclein. Both failed in meeting their primary endpoints. Now, the companies are still going forward because they saw some signals, but it just shows you, these were going to become our Hail Mary savior drugs, right? And I still think there's hope, but hope comes in small increments. They don't come in these overnight changes.
Right. Like the progress being made with the gut brain connection you mentioned about, this year, there's been plenty of that. And then last year as well.
Oh, for sure. There are so many interesting new approaches and concepts that go beyond just taking Cinnamon. I mean, we have a whole plethora of drugs in the pipeline. Many of them will fail, but maybe we'll learn from some of those failures which will propagate new studies and new questions. And eventually we will get there.
Kevin, I wanted to ask you a question. Have you heard any, is stem cell therapy, is that completely sunk?
No, it's not. I think it's funny. My next door neighbor, he just moved in, did some of the stem cell work at Yale, and was telling me about it at a meet and greet. His comment was initially when they injected it in individuals, they saw positive effects, but they didn't linger, and the stem cells, they were there to replenish the dopamine producing cells in the substantia nigra. But what's interesting is with those learnings, they're coming back at it with a different round and a different approach. My feelings are that it's going to be a little bit of everything. It's going to be DBS, it's going to be stem cell, it's going to be medication, and it's going to be non-traditional things that are going to get us by. It'll be cocktails just like oncology that get us by. But the problem with Parkinson's is our progression is so slow. And unlike cancer, where either it wins or it doesn't, our time frame is measured more in decades. So it's very hard to look at progress when it takes so long to proceed.
Especially since most of us have the attention span of a goldfish, thanks to all these electronic devices, etc. People say, dance like nobody's watching. Well, they're not watching. They're looking at their phones. So go ahead. But in the meantime, one thing that I do find hopeful is that we have a community that supports one another. And as soon as we say now, notice how it's not now anymore. Everything is temporary, even our pain, even our off times, because we know right around the corner is going to be an on time, like this podcast. Brian, what do you make of all these changes that you're reading about and hearing about? Like you mentioned, stem cell research. Are you hopeful about a cure possibly happening, even in your lifetime or in your children's lifetime?
In all honesty, I've kind of given up thinking that there'll be a cure in my lifetime. I look at my kids who are now young adults, and I look at my two littles. My youngest son, who is allergic to everything, has eczema. And the kid is just, from the time he's in a baby, always itching, and I've seen him suffer through that. And I would lay down every time to make sure that that kid didn't have to itch, or any of my kids have to worry about tremor or rigidity or what have you. And so I stay optimistic, but I stay optimistic for my kids and for their kids, because like Kevin was saying, I've only looked into it a little bit, but it's enough for me to tell that this isn't an easy thing to cure, or they would have cured it,
Yeah.
So
It's one of the more complicated diseases. When you hear that adage that I think Michael J. Fox coined, when you see one Parkinson's patient, you see one Parkinson's. Well, that's great for really explaining why we're all different. But when it comes to developing cures that we're all different, it's really hard to study that kind of disease.
Yeah.
In there.
Like playing whack-a-mole. It's like, let's try this. Okay, that didn't work. Well, that one's so good. Or, yeah, I feel great. And then the next day, whoops, that didn't work out so well.
Before we leave that, there is something we can do, Brian.
What's that?
And Heather, we can work to try to prevent disease from ever happening. And exposure to toxins that we know are neurotoxic, and concussions and other things, these can be prevented. And so what we need to do is, a prevented case is better than a cure. And so we need to be very on top of trying to do anything that we can to avoid pesticide exposure or other neurotoxins like they have in military bases. These are the kinds of things that we can control.
And of course, our mindset. when they talk about the thoughts we have, to recognize our thoughts aren't real and that we can keep gathering information. And whenever we're really down, we can have a touchstone. We have hundreds, maybe even millions of people we can call. I mean, there are millions of us in this country alone. I'm sure that we can even use it. If you don't have a friend with Parkinson's nearby, use a website, go online, check it out. Contact the Brian Grant Foundation. There are many foundations that have lists. There are people all over who are willing to help you live better right now, here and now. So I wanted to know, you're both going to walk in the Portland to Coast Relay. What have you experienced as you've trained? We touched a little bit on this, Kevin. Why don't you go first in telling us a little bit more about what you've experienced during the training to participate in this event?
The first week that I actually went out and trained, I ended up getting this fascinating gait where you just stoop over and your feet can't keep up with you. And it's almost like a comedy watching us walk. I was on a trail going through that fascinating gait, and I ended up taking a dive into an embankment. Thank God I didn't hit my head and knock my DBS leads loose. But the sheer jarring of just that pounding and walking made it so the next day when I woke up, I was very sensitive to light and was nauseous. In fact, I was actually on a Zoom call and I had to black out the Zoom and go to the bathroom and get sick 3 different times. Anyway, my girlfriend, Jen, who's also going to be on this walk, saw that happening and said, "We're taking you to the emergency room." And sure enough, I had a concussion. So that was week 1 of training.
Wow. That Zoom show was a rough one. Oof.
But perseverance, right? I stopped walking outside where there were heat waves here in Boulder, got on a treadmill, and have been pretty consistent with treadmill training. And the treadmill training is not the same. It's like you can't train on a treadmill for basketball, can you, Brian?
Bringing down that body fat for Pat Riley. He'd have you on that trainer for an hour.
Did he really?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, I would have loved to see that. I bet there was a lot of cursing going on your side.
Never out loud. The chatter in the head was really going back and forth, though.
Why didn't they do a bad lip reading for basketball like they do with football?
Because he's one cat you don't want to catch murmuring shit. Because he'll be like, "You have something to say, Brian?"
You're like,
and you got to put out and be like, "No, I'm good."
That's great.
How do you train for this, Brian and Heather?
I haven't walked as much as I'd like to walk, but I'm going to definitely ramp it up when I'm in Ohio. I realized by looking in the mirror, I've been checking my physique out now for a while, ever since I put on some weight. And I think structurally, my structural build is just working against me because I got long legs. I got a butt that's on my back. Got that in the back. Then I got a gut that's in the front dropping down. So you got booty sticking up, going down. And every time I get going, I start going and I start to get into the walk. Lower back just locks up. And, I'm just trying to figure out how I'm going to get through that. I'm going to try my best to get through it. I'm not going to not come because I'm 100% in on this team, but I got to figure out this booty to back thing.
Well, I love the saying that we came up for our shirts for our team. Parkinson's is not a walk in the park.
No.
Because it wasn't really when we were first diagnosed, but it's certainly not for those of us that are more than a decade into it. In fact,
Right.
the park is pretty full of thorns and brush that we don't want to be walking in, but we have no choice.
I've been training at the reservoir, and let's just say here's how my training went. It was a spectacular fall. And as I tumbled down into the red leaves of the poison ivy, I was not at all surprised to find myself in the middle of what seemed to be the edge of eternity. I mean, really, I was looking over like a cliff I don't even know how I got there. I was only on the upper rim for a little while because I knew that I couldn't do the heights. And that's when I decided to bow out of the actual walking part and join the podcasting and supporting of the team. And I'll be there to interview you, and I will certainly be there when you cross the finish. I cannot wait to be there for you guys. And this means so much to me that Katrina's letting me participate and Brian's letting me participate, even though I did have to bow out because I knew that, there are some areas of the walk, they're a little treacherous. So, so can we go back a little bit though to Jen before we move on to Brian? Because I have some questions for you too, Brian. Your care partner, Jen, she's also on the team. What is meant to have her support and training and participating?
Oh, it's everything. I mean, to be able to have someone who knows what I'm going through, watch me and train and walk with me, either on a treadmill or on a trail, is bonding I can't describe. It's really wonderful. I'm looking forward to being out there with her. And I'm so glad Katrina and Brian, you guys allowed her to be part of our team because I know it's going to make us stronger as a couple.
And she does help all of us. And you also have someone there that's going to be doing some PT and some other people, including someone who participates in the Olympics.
That's right. Brian, your son is coming too, right?
Yeah, he'll be there.
He's a comedian too. Oh, we need him.
He is funny. He'll definitely keep us laughing. That's sure.
Hey, Heather, before we go on, I want to say one thing about your dropping a participation in lieu of interviewing and being with us still. I think that move is a smart move, having seen you walk. I think it's one of the more courageous things that you're doing is truly admitting what could be dangerous. And so I know that all of us are supporting you in a different way going forward here on you're always going to be our team member and that's the really important message. We love you and we are so behind each other on this.
Thank you so much. That means the world to me. I do feel that support. This community has really been amazing. I tear up a lot thinking about all the times I got help. Just getting to the airport and things like that. Everybody always just shows up. Even just morale, That's what we do for each other. We take turns carrying each other home, as Ram Dass says.
Well, I think that's the one thing that I have learned from. I mean, we have our care providers, they're great, but the first line of defense is each other. And I have to say that between the friends that I have on this call, between the people that I text and email every day, my community is rich.
But Brian, don't ask us to carry over the line. We'll do anything.
Yeah, I told everybody, friends that were going down there, I said, you may see my feet coming before you see my head. And that's because everybody will have me on their shoulders.
It takes a village.
It takes a village or two.
We got you.
To get me over that line.
We'll have you though. We're gonna prop each other up all the way.
Right on.
Thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you so much. The Brian Grant Foundation supports people with Parkinson's right now, and we're gonna get over this line. We're gonna bring awareness to Parkinson's together. Do we got this or what? We got this, right?
Got it.
See you there.
We're here with Kevin Kwok at the end of the line. What were your thoughts about the finish?
Oh my God, it's like, will it ever come? There were moments last night or early this morning where it was a struggle indeed. But we made it, babe. We made it.
And as you crossed that line, you thought of what?
Well, I thought about just joy of getting the message out. The Parkinson's hit so many different types of people. And here we are together doing it. And we just love the fact that you give us a venue like this to express it.
And you had somebody with you helping you with the race. Is it okay if we say hello to somebody that really made this happen?
I'm so lucky to have my caregiver and my everything with me today. Jen, I could not have done this without her.
Well, I'm here because of you. And
Isn't it good to have Parkinson's? No, I'm joking. I'm joking. But she helped me train. She helped me through injuries.
Thank you.
She helped me through the good days and the bad days getting here. And we finished across the finish line together.
we had a lot of fun. And
And we had fun.
I can't thank the Brian Grant Foundation enough for inviting us here. I feel honored. We had so many people come up to us, or like when they were running by me, like shout, you're doing so good. We love what you're doing. And it made me want to walk faster and just pick up my pace to go back to my team. We had such a great team, and I just had so much fun. And I just really wanted to thank Brian Grant and the whole team.
And Heather, we want to thank Heather because we wouldn't be here without you.
Well, I could say the same thing for you because you've taught me how to handle and manage this disease, and it's not easy.
It's not.
Thank you, Kevin Kwok.
It's not.
Thank you, Jen. I appreciate you so much.
The Brian Grant Foundation empowers people impacted by Parkinson's to lead active and fulfilling lives. Help support our efforts at briangrant.org. A special thank you to Raphael Sadiq for providing the music for this podcast, and to Market of Choice for sponsoring the Portland to Coast team. This podcast is produced by Brian Griggs. Learn more at griggsproductions.com.